when the pandemic first hit, I think a lot of us were unsure of what we would be able to do, right? And for many, I think that education was a question, right? And for those who want to further their careers, there's always been questions. It's like, do I have the time? Do I have the resources? Do I have the money to be able to do this? And I was in that same position when I first thought about going back to school many moons ago. I'm not gonna say how many moons ago, but a good number of them, right? And those were my barriers. Those were my hesitations. Those were the questions that I had to get answers for, right? I was a mom at the time. I had both my kids. I already had a mortgage. I'm married. I had a full-time job. And all of those questions were, but I wanted to further my education. I've always enjoyed education and I knew that I wanted to get my degree. But I had a lot of barriers. I had a lot of questions. And today, to answer, maybe hopefully answer some of those questions, my guest, Tamika Bybee. She's here from Howard Community College, and she has a bundle of information. She's the director of financial aid, and we're gonna try to really concentrate today on a term that I had to learn when I first came to this country back in 2001, and I first looked at college, right? And it was this weird looking word that it's almost hard to say, FAFSA. And when I saw that, I was like, what is a FAFSA, right? And where do I get one of those? Like, how much does it cost? Right? It was just a really weird term. And the funny thing about it is that as I continued to talk to other people, I realized that it wasn't just me who wasn't familiar with it, that even those who had grown up here in this country were also felt strange around the FAFSA. So we're going to dive into that big acronym, right? Because FAFSA stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid. And when you have to say all those words like that, you are very grateful that it's a little that we have this little acronym right there. Just say FAFSA. And Tamika, thank you so much for joining me this morning. Thank you so much for exploring this and for bringing us a little bit of light and clarity around what a FAFSA really is and the process and everything else. So I think that a good place to start is just answering that question, right? Like what is a FAFSA? You know, when we're coming and looking at the ways to afford college and to pay for college, and this word gets thrown at us. What is that? What are they telling us to do, and what are we really applying for? So welcome, good morning, and I know I that was a long-winded
Oh,
introduction
no,
to our conversation today.
it's fine. Good morning. So, Chris, basically, like you said, a FAFSA is a free application for federal student aid. So, what that means for everybody out there who does not live in the financial aid world is that it's an application that prospective students will complete in order to see if they're eligible for federal student aid. And that's aid to pay for going to school, going to college, and getting your associate's degree, certificate, or bachelor's and master's degree, and so on and so forth. So, in a nutshell, that's essentially what a FAFSA is.
And it's a key word that I want to say that I want to emphasize there is that it's free. Because I know that many times when we think of applications, many times when we think of different things, we always assume that there's going to be a fee associated with it. And for everybody listening out there, if you're considering education and you're considering furthering your and taking your career, maybe you want to switch your careers, or maybe you just got your associates and you're ready for a 4-year degree, or maybe like you mentioned, master's degree right there. That's where I would find myself right now, and I didn't think that I could apply for for financial aid for that. So anywhere you are in your education and your road to furthering your education, you have this free application that maybe you can submit. Now, Tamika, if somebody is just considering, right, and it's just sitting there and saying, well, I have more flexibility, I can take classes online, which has proven to be beneficial to many people, not having to commute and being able to do it on their own. Um, can you just say one day, I'm going to apply. I just want to see what's available for me. Or do you have to prepare for that application? Do you need to have certain type of information that you need to bring with you when you're looking at doing that?
So I'm gonna say yes and no. You can just wake up one day and roll out of bed and say, "Oh, you know what? I think I want to school. I want to go to school. I'm gonna apply for financial aid." You could do that. And the reason why I say yes and no is because you could literally go and log in. You could get your FSA ID, your Federal Student Aid ID, and start completing your free application for federal student aid, because the Department of Education has set it up in such a way that you don't necessarily need to collect other documents and have them in place in order for you to complete the FAFSA. So specifically what I mean by collecting other documents is like tax information and your income information, because that is needed to complete the application. But the Department of Ed has set the application up to the point where you can actually import your tax information into the FAFSA without having to like go get your actual paper tax documents. You can import it via the IRS data retrieval tool, which is embedded into the FAFSA, and it will automatically bring all that information in. Now, the reason why I say you might want to have that documentation handy and available is because sometimes the IRS data retrieval tool may not work. And the reason why it may not work is because it requires you to enter your information in directly as it is shown on your tax returns. So if you live on, 813 Main Street Lane and you spell out the word lane on your tax returns, but then when you go into the IRS data retrieval tool and you put in, the address as 123 Main Street LN and not spell it out as lane, it won't pull your information in. It'll reject it. And a lot of times, you have people that have moved, they don't necessarily remember the address that they had on their tax returns. Again, they may, spell out something on the tax return, like a street or a lane, but then use the abbreviated version when they try to go into the IRS data retrieval tool, and it will not bring the information in. So you can definitely just go in and try it. If you're not able to import that information in, you can stop and save where you are, log out, and then at a later date, once you have those documents, log back in and manually input that information.
So you can stop and save. Is there a time frame that you have to come back and finish that application before it like kicks you a new one or something like that?
No, only the time frame is essentially you have to get it done before they close it out for the next award year. So you have like a whole year in order to be able to do that.
So to apply, is this something that you have to apply for every year? If you're pursuing your career at Howard Community College and you're a full-time student and you're on track to graduate or to transfer in 2 years, do you have to apply every year that you're going to be in college?
Yes. So you have to complete your free application for federal student aid every year in order to see if you are eligible for federal aid. Um, the FAFSA is always made available every year on October 1st. And I would encourage everyone that once it is made available, immediately go out there and complete your renewal. And the reason being is because a lot of schools have priority deadlines. And those priority deadlines are a lot of times for institutional aid and also state aid. And you don't want to miss those deadlines. So you want to get your FAFSA into the Department of Education as soon as possible, as soon as they make it available. And one of the hurdles in the past that a lot of families found themselves facing was, the FAFSA would become available, but they hadn't completed their taxes yet in order to put the information into the FAFSA. So people would end up waiting until tax season to enter that information. So the Department of Ed noticed this and they changed some things around where now it's called prior year, where they request your prior year taxes. So you don't have to wait in order to file taxes. So for instance, with this year, with the 2021 award year, the FAFSA asked for your 2018 taxes. So you don't have to wait in order to file taxes in order to enter your information. So they did that to make it a lot easier for everyone. Now, with that being stated, because they're using your prior year taxes, especially with the situation that we're in now with the coronavirus, that may not be optimal because people may have had a full income in 2018 versus now where they may not have no income. However, there are things that families can do with regards to having financial aid offices take a look at their current income and possibly adjusting um, their um, their income, which in turn may affect their ability to be able to get more student aid.
So let me just clarify a couple of things here and look at a couple of different situations. Um, One, you said is you apply, you wait, but that might be over the institutional aid and federal aid that you're applying for. So when you're applying for FAFSA, when you're applying through that system, it's not just one pot that you're reaching into to be able to pay for your college. It's not just going and it's not like just going to one institution, I guess. It's actually looking at many different types of aid for you to pay for school.
So the FAFSA itself is only looking at federal aid. However, schools, they have a requirement where, you know, they may want to see your FAFSA on file, or states may have that requirement where you need to have that FAFSA on file in order for you to be eligible for either institutional aid or for state aid. But however, when you file that FAFSA, when you complete the FAFSA, it is specifically for federal aid, but the school or the state just they may want to see that in order to verify income and household information and things of that nature to award you additional funds.
Great. So that was a great clarification right there. Now, if, for instance, you fill out your FAFSA, your institution gets all that information, will they reach out to you if they feel that based on your application there is either state aid or institutional aid? Will they, will the Office of financial aid reach out to the student or offer that automatically, or are these separate processes that you have to do?
So it depends on the school that you go to. I can speak for Howard Community College in that we have a separate scholarship application that students can apply for. They can submit that in order to get institutional aid. However, with regards to the state of Maryland, it is required that students complete that FAFSA, or if they're not eligible to complete the FAFSA, then they would want to complete the MISFA, which is the Maryland state application for federal aid. So those are requirements in order for students to get state aid. And when a student completes either one of those, the MISFA or the FAFSA, the state, for the most part, will automatically consider them for the state grants that are available. There are some separate scholarship funds with the state where students will need to manually apply for those, but with regards to the state grants, they will automatically be considered once they complete the FAFSA or the MISFA.
So it's important to understand that when you apply for that, it's going for federal, but there's a couple of the things also that it's kind of like initiating for you in a sense. Um,
Exactly. I always tell students, when in doubt, just complete it. Just do
yeah.
the FAFSA.
So, you talked about eligibility, and I want to really get a good understanding of who's eligible for FAFSA because we have a variety of students. There's a variety of situations, right? So is this for everybody? Is this regardless of your income? Is this regardless of your immigration status? Is this open to everybody and anybody who's going to school? Or what are some of those eligibility requirements?
So again, I always tell people, just when in doubt, always go ahead and submit that application, because you will be told whether or not you're eligible after you submit that FAFSA. But in general, people who are US citizens or eligible non-citizens are eligible to complete the free application for federal student aid. And then if you're unsure what an eligible non-citizen is, they have a website out there where it lists all of the eligible non-citizen statuses, like permanent resident, and so on and so forth. But that website is studentaid.gov, and it lists all of those statuses for students who are interested.
It is confusing, and depending who you talk to, like you just said, a permanent resident, right? Like I thought it was only for U.S. citizens. Like I really, really thought it was only for U.S. citizens, and until I met somebody who was not a citizen, who was a permanent resident,
Mhm.
and they told me that they had applied for FAFSA and actually gotten some some help, which I was happy about. But it was a big eye-opening moment for me. So what I always tell people is don't disqualify yourself, right? Don't disqualify yourself. Don't We only know, unless you're working day in and day out like Tamika, in the financial aid world, chances are you don't really know all of the nuances around it, right? Plus the other thing is, for instance, one thing that I used to do when I was a student, at Howard Community College, I would always go, and I became really, really close friends with the people at the financial aid office, because I would come in and ask questions, and I would come in and say, okay, this is my situation. This is, this is where I am. This is what my life looks like. Should I be applying for this? And sometimes it would be like, yes, go ahead and apply for the FAFSA. Other times it would be like, but also look, there's all this scholarships over here, that you might be eligible for. I mean, so they would give me a lot more information than I came in with one question and they gave me 10 answers, basically, is what I'm trying to say, right? Where they just
Yeah.
really shared. They were like, if you don't want to have a lot of debt when you leave college, there is money out there. There's ways to get it. It's work. I'm going to be honest with you. If you're looking at scholarships, I mean, depending on what the scholarships require, you might be filling out essays after essay after essay, and applications, and just really gathering information of, even volunteer work that you've done, right? So there's, depending again on the scholarship, it is work, but it pays off. It really can pay off, and you really can just minimize and break that barrier of affordability for college and further your career. So go to the, if you have, so Tamika, this actually brings, I was about to say go to the financial aid office, and as soon as I said that, it's like, well, it's closed right now, people can't go there, right? So in times of COVID, when we continue to be home, how can people get access to you guys? And if they have questions, or if they are feeling lost, or just don't know whether they should apply or not, how can they get in touch with you right now?
So students can actually still talk to us face to face virtually. We have a virtual walk-in service that is available Monday through Fridays from 9 to 3. And students can click on the Zoom link that's located on our web page, just right in the middle of our financial aid web page, and they can virtually speak with us. And it's private. You are put into a breakout room with a financial aid counselor, and you can ask whatever questions you may have with regards to your account or anything regarding financial aid.
Anything else that you feel that we need to cover on this housekeeping part of the FAFSA and the application, in terms of where do I apply, how do I apply, what do I need to have with me? I know we've covered a lot of information already. Is there anything specific that we haven't touched yet?
I think we were pretty thorough and touching on all of the various different, housekeeping items, like how students can apply for financial aid and how they can reach us. I'll also say that they can reach us via our email, which is finaid@howardcc.edu. Now, obviously, it won't be real time, but if that's a way that you would rather communicate, you can definitely email us. But if you want immediate assistance and you want to talk to someone face to face, the right route would be to utilize our Zoom virtual walk-in service.
Perfect. So we've covered, all of the basics. We've done like the free application for FAFSA and the application for FAFSA itself, right? We've told you guys how to do that. I hit submit. I went through all of the forms. I went through all of the information, input all of that. I hit submit. What happens next?
So after you complete your free application for federal student aid and you sign in and submit it, it goes to the Department of Education. And when it goes to the Department of Education, they have formulas that they use that determines what's called your expected family contribution number. And so what that means is they are determining how much money they expect for you and your family to contribute to your education. And that is how financial aid administrators determine if you are eligible for Pell Grant funds, which is free money that you never have to pay back. And it's federal free money, I should denote that. So when you hit submit, it goes to the Department of Education, and they do their processes there. And then once they are finished with that, then the student will get what's called a SAR, or a student aid report. They'll get a notification that their student aid report is ready and available. And then what happens there is a student can log into their portal on the studentaid.gov website, and they can see that student aid report. And it's basically a recap of all the information that they included on their FAFSA. And it also gives them at the end of it a summary, which lets them know if the financial aid department will be reaching out to them for further information. And most of the times, if it says that, it usually means that either there was something missing that they did not include on the FAFSA, or the Department of Education may have selected them for a process called verification, where the Department of Ed requires the school to verify the household and financial information that the student put on that FAFSA. It could be that maybe the student is not eligible. So we talked about being a U.S. citizen or a eligible non-citizen. It may be that the student does not fall into one of those buckets. But that will be in that summary, and it'll let the student know, hey, you need to reach out to your financial aid department, because there are some other items that need to be taken care of. So the student receives that student aid report, and then the institution, Howard Community College, will receive what's called an ISER, or Institutional Student Information Report. And that gives us all of the information that the Department of Ed is communicating to us about that student and their eligibility. So that tells us if they selected the student for verification and if we need to collect additional documents and so on and so forth. Another thing, sometimes students get caught up with, particularly our men, is the selective service component. You have to have registered for selective service if you're 18 years old in order to get federal student aid. So again, when we get that ISER, that will communicate to the institution whether we need to reach out to the student to say, hey, you haven't registered for selective service. You need to go ahead and do this in order for us to give you financial aid. So when we get all that information, then that's when we're eligible, when we are able to either package your financial aid, or reach out to you for more documents.
So there's a lot that happens after we hit that submit button. It's not an automatic process. It's actually somebody.
And I think it's a misconception among a lot of people, and rightfully so, because again, nobody, like the regular average everyday person, this is not their world, financial aid and federal aid. And I think a lot of times people forget that what we're dealing with here is federal money. It's not, like we have a safe in the back where we can just, go and put in the combination and grab out the money and, give it out to the student. It's a whole process with the federal government that we have to go through. And as such, we have to adhere to their regulations, their regulations and their rules and how we award students their money. So it's a whole back end process that a lot of people just, they're not aware of.
It would be nice though. I really like your idea of having a safe full of money where we
Yes,
just go and access any time,
it would be. It would be
right?
lovely.
Yeah, if we just had to apply, it's like, well, if we just had a ball full of money and we just needed to go and fill a quick application, put all of the reasoning why we need it, and then that ball decides, okay, you're asked for, I don't know, 5,000. I think that you can get it for 3,000. But here you go. Wouldn't that be
Right,
nice,
right. Me wave my wand.
Right, there you go. So you mentioned, after you submit your application, then HCC receives that. So does the student or somebody have to have the school already selected? Do they need to know which school they're going to go to when they apply for the FAFSA?
Yes. So if, say a student wants to come here to HCC and they just forget to add our school code on the FAFSA, we will never get that information. And so the student will be enrolled and they'll, probably wondering like, why haven't I gotten my financial aid? Like, where's my award? Where's my money? Like, I don't have any money to pay. And that's the reason why. And we do get that sometimes where students will confuse award years. And they will, because the FAFSA is always going to be out there for 2 award years. It's always going to be out there for 2 award years. So sometimes students will, like when they are coming to HCC, they may complete the FAFSA for the wrong award year. And so therefore we don't have the information for the right award year to be able to package them. So it's imperative that they go out there and put that school code on there. And just so the students know, if you forget to do it and you remember later on, like, oh, I forgot to put that school code, you can log back in and make corrections to your FAFSA, and that includes adding the school code. So what I suggest for people is to put whatever schools that you are possibly ever thinking about, because they have so many different, there's like over like, I think like 20 or 30 schools you can put into the FAFSA, the school codes. I don't know the exact number, but there's a lot of schools that you can put in there. I say put any and every school that you are ever possibly thinking that you want to go ahead and add that school code into that FAFSA. So that way, whenever you make the final decision, like, yes, I'm going to go to this school, they will have your information.
I think that's a great piece of advice because many times, we don't know exactly, or people are still considering different schools and doing a lot of research on that. But you don't, like Tamika said, you don't want to delay filling out the FAFSA. I mean, I think that to give time for any questions that may come up, or just anything really, you want to go ahead and do it right now. Put all of those school codes right there, and once you make your final decision, you will know that the institution already has that information and is ready to work with you. Is everything that you're eligible for in a FAFSA income based? I know you mentioned grants. I know you mentioned loans. You also mentioned about institutional aid and state aid as well. So is all of this, the determinations made, are all of them based on your income? Do your grades count, right? If you're not a freshman coming in and you've been in school for, I don't know, a couple semesters already maybe, and you're an exemplary student, and are your grades ever considered when it comes to FAFSA, or is this just looking straight at your income?
So let me see, how do I want to say this? When it comes to student loans, your grade level matters. So if you want to take out federal student loans, there are a few different types that you can take out. So there is the subsidized direct loan, which means that the government subsidizes it, so you are not accruing interest on that loan while you are enrolled at least half-time status. There's the unsubsidized direct loan, where obviously, it's unsubsidized, so you are accruing interest as soon as that money hits your student account. And then there's the Parent Plus loan, which a parent can take out on behalf of their student to pay for, the finances at the school. So with regards to those loans, it does matter regarding like what your grade level is in college. Because, so for instance, let's say you are considered an independent student and it is your first year, then the max that you can get in federal student loans, and it can be a combination of unsub and sub, or of, maybe just Parent Plus loan, But the max you can get as an independent first year student is $9,500, and that's for the whole year. And then it goes up from there. So once you hit sophomore status, then the max you can get is 10,500. And then once you hit junior and senior level status, the max you can get in federal loans is 12,500. Now, with regards to Pell Grant and Supplemental Educational Opportunity Grant, also known as SEOG, your grade level has no bearing on those grants. It's free money. The only thing that's taken into consideration with those grants are your household size and your income. And again, that goes back to the determination of what your EFC, your expected family contribution number is. So the lower that EFC is, the more Pell Grant money you're going to get. The higher that EFC is, then the less Pell Grant money you're going to get.
I'd love to go back and revisit the idea of the parent applied loans. I think that's what you call them, because I
Plus
think,
loans. Yep.
Thank you, because there is somebody who's just graduating, or maybe somebody who's still a dependent, showing up as a dependent on taxes, in their parents' taxes, right? When they come and they apply, do they apply on their own? Are the parents the ones who are supposed to come in and apply? Help us navigate a little bit around that that nuance right there, because it to me at least is like it's complicated.
So it's not that complicated. I know it sounds like it is. So the first thing you have to do, obviously, is you got to complete that FAFSA and you got to submit it. So once that is taken care of, if you see that, I'm not eligible for any Pell Grant money, or I'm eligible for a little bit, but it's just not enough to cover, and you have a parent or parents that are willing to say, you know what, I don't want my child to incur any debt, so I'm going to take on that debt to send my child to school, and I'm going to apply for this Parent Plus loan. The only thing that the parent would need to do is, again, go to studentaid.gov, and that studentaid.gov website is your one-stop shop for everything. Everything that you would need to do in order to apply for aid, in order to get student loans, so on and so forth, is through studentaid.gov. The parent would go onto the studentaid.gov website and they would complete an application for the Parent Plus loan. And then when they submit that, then we would get that at the school, because they would have to put the school information in there. We would get that notification. And if the parent is approved, then we can go ahead and we can award the Parent Plus loan for, whatever amount that they're asking, anything up to the max amount. If the parent is denied that plus loan, then the student, they have the option of, let's hypothetically say that a person's EFC is just too high in order to get Pell Grant money or to get subsidized loan money. Because with the direct subsidized loan, it is need-based, meaning you have to have need in your student budget in order for us to give you that loan. So if you have an EFC of 80,000, then, chances are, because the cost of attendance here is not $80,000, you have no need. So if a student applies for a Parent Plus loan and they are denied, then what we can do is we can add on to their unsubsidized loan amount. So remember when I said like a freshman first year independent student is eligible for $9,500. So that is split between an unsub and a subsidized loan amount. But if the student has no need, then what we can do is we can go ahead and make that unsubsidized loan a full $9,500 for the student.
So you said independent student, right? How do we determine, for instance, I'm thinking my daughter, and I still have 1.5 years, I guess, before I have to worry about this, right? Before school hits for her, she graduates. She's not working. I think that she will continue to be my dependent. I don't think that she's going to work as soon as she graduates from high school. It could change, I don't know, but as of right now, I believe that that's the plan, to just concentrate on being a full-time student and continue to be a dependent child. So when it's time for her to go and apply at schools and she's filling out those applications, is she the one who's going and applying, and is her information, even though she's not may not be working, hypothetically at that point, is she the one who's submitting all of that? Or automatically do I need to be the one who goes and submits the household information at that point?
So, and you're referring to the FAFSA, correct? Yes, so it's your daughter. She's submitting all that information. However, when you go through the FAFSA, there are a set of dependency questions. And those questions determine whether your daughter is going to be considered a dependent student or independent student. So if after answering those dependency questions, she is considered a dependent student, then that's where your information will need to be added into the FAFSA. And it will automatically bring up the parent part, the parent piece where you have to enter in your adjusted gross income and wages and things of that nature. So it really just depends on, how those questions are answered. And, typically a student is considered independent if they have a dependent of their own that they provide more than 50% of the support to. If they are in the military, if they were a homeless youth or under guardianship. There's a whole list of things, and all those questions will be asked to determine whether a student is independent or dependent.
Okay, great. And I think that's really important for maybe parents who are in my same situation, already starting to look at college and trying to figure out, well, do I need to be the one who's providing this information, taking care of this process, or should it be my child who's already looking into that? So again, whatever school you're looking at, financial aid, and I personally have dealt with the financial aid office at Howard Community College when I was a student. And it was, like I said, I went with one question and I got 10 answers, 10 very helpful answers of 10 different things and ways that I should and could, apply for and obtain money to pay for my studies. You said, this person may apply. It's determined that they either get loans or they get grants. But what happens if you actually don't, you're not eligible for any of them, right? If it comes up and says gives you no options, what happens then?
So the only way that you would not be eligible for anything, and that includes loans, is if you're just not eligible for Title IV. And Title IV aid is the that's the term that's used to describe federal student aid is Title IV. So if it comes up that the student can't get any Title IV aid, then that means that they're not eligible for Title IV aid, meaning that they are it could be a number of things to make them ineligible. They could be defaulted on a previous student loan from some other place. They could be not eligible because they're not a U.S. citizen or under one of those, non-citizen eligible groups. It could be a number of things. So if they fall under those categories where they're just not Title IV eligible, period, then the other route to go is with the state. You can again apply for, with the state of Maryland, the Maryland State Application for Federal Student, or for the Maryland Application for Student Aid. You can apply for that, and I believe the website is mhec.state.us or mdcaps.mhec.state.us, where you can go on there and you can apply for aid through the state. So just because you're not federally eligible does not mean that necessarily that you're not state eligible. And you may be eligible for some institutional scholarships. So I always encourage students to please complete that scholarship application process. And again, it's different from school to school. So, you want to check out, like if you are, used to Howard Community College and the way that we do things, and let's say you get an associate's degree and decide to transfer to UMD, they may do things a little bit differently. So you always want to communicate with the financial aid office and ask them, hey, what is this process like? Do I need to fill out a separate application to apply for institutional aid or institutional scholarships? What do I need to do? So you always want to ask those questions whatever school you choose to go to.
This is great because I just got the picture. I've already graduated from college. I would be looking at going into a master's program, and I'm just now understanding the process of financial aid. So your FAFSA is really for federal help. That's what the FAFSA is meant for. Then if and just one clarification on that, because on the reasons you said, there's a few reasons why you might not be eligible. You didn't say income. And I thought that was going to be kind of like the first one that you were going to say. So that leads me to believe that that's not true. Can you help us clarify that?
Sure. So you could have, hypothetically, let's say that you are a dependent student, you live at home with, maybe you have a single parent, maybe you live at home with your dad, and so it's you, your dad, and maybe three other children in the household that your dad is to. Your father could make a pretty decent living, but let's say there are four children in the household and maybe three of those kids are in college. So the Department of Education takes that into consideration. They take into consideration how many people are in the household, how many people the parent or parents are supporting more than 50% of their income going towards, how many people are in college in the household, because again, if a parent is having to pay expenses related to a college education for multiple people in the household, then that impacts their EFC. So it always goes back to that EFC. The EFC is determined by the number of people in the household compared to the total income of the household. So there are different variances and variables that are used to calculate that EFC. So someone with a high income may not necessarily be ineligible to receive Pell Grant money, because that's really what is determining, are you eligible for the free money? And then, of course, with the student loans, again, it goes back to the need, because the subsidized loan is need-based. And the way that we determine need is we look at the cost of attendance minus that EFC, and then that gives us the need, how much the student needs to be able to pay for expenses related to college for that award year. So it's a lot of different moving parts, a lot of different variables, but just because you have a high income or your household income is high does not necessarily mean that you will not be able to get Pell Grant money. You will definitely always, as long as you are Title IV eligible, you will always be eligible to get federal student loans. I mean, that's granted as long as you don't hit your maximum there, because there is a limit to the amount that you can borrow for your education.
That's new information for me, because I really thought that the FAFSA was meant only for people need-based, right? Like low income, like your household had to meet a certain level for you to be able to even apply for the FAFSA. But you just told us that that is not the case, that what you're eligible for, depending on that income is what's going to change, right? You might be able to get that free money, the grants that you've talked about. You might be able to get the subsidized loans, or you might just be eligible for the unsubsidized loans, right?
Yes.
And that's huge. I mean, that is huge, because I just told you guys, and everybody listening and watching, do not disqualify yourself. But I was already disqualifying myself, thinking there's just no way. My family, thankfully, it's not like we have the biggest of incomes, but we live comfortably. So in my mind, I was already disqualifying myself, quite honestly. Like I was like, there's just no way that I'm going to be able to get a loan through the FAFSA. And you just gave me hope. So I should certainly start looking for my master's.
There are a lot of people who automatically disqualify themselves just because they just, make these assumptions. And that's why I say, when in doubt, just complete the FAFSA. I mean, it's not going to hurt you. There is no downside to doing the FAFSA. If you had in your head already that I'm not going to be eligible for any type of assistance, then you applying for that FAFSA, it's either going to be, oh, you were right or you were wrong, and you're actually going to get all this money.
Right, it's going to just let you know you were right. To validate you. So that's positive anyway. or it might actually open up doors that you thought were closed for you. So no, this is great. Thank you for helping us clarify that, and thank you for bringing that up. So yeah, just apply for the FAFSA and see what happens, see what you're eligible for. Um, if in fact you're deemed that you're not eligible, right? You mentioned about going through the state, and you mentioned about going through the school. When it comes to looking at scholarships, because I think that the state kind of falls a little bit around the same guidelines of the federal. Is that fair to say? Where is that whole process of application? And there's certain guidelines that apply to everybody. Is that fair to say?
So not necessarily. Where the federal aid is concerned, they want to know your household size, and they want to know how much money is coming into the household. Where the state is concerned, they want to know if you're a resident, for one. So if you are a resident, that's the main thing that they're looking for. And with regards to the grants, if you are a resident of the state, then most of the times you can get some kind of state funding. But again, you have to make sure that you complete your FAFSA or the MISFA really quickly, so that way you don't miss that priority deadline, because they only have so much in funds that they're giving out with the state versus a Pell Grant. That's kind of like limitless. It's not like a set amount of money in Pell Grant funds that a school can get for students. So it's a little bit different with the state in that they're not necessarily looking at, household size and income coming into home and things of that nature.
Great. So definitely apply for that. Absolutely. Again, do not disqualify yourself. And then the other thing is, you said scholarships and you talked about other, institutional, I mean, and we haven't even touched on private or mentioned them yet, right? But when you're looking for those opportunities, is the best place to go financial aid office? Is there like a website also for that? Where can we find more details on those other, I call them creative ways of paying for college?
So you can, if you go to our website, we list, the various different ways as far as completing your FAFSA and completing the scholarship application here at Howard Community College. You can also, so aside from institutional aid and federal aid, you can also apply for private scholarships as well. And so there are a multitude of different websites that are out there. A lot of people do a Google search, but some of the databases that I usually give out to students is what is the name of it? It's, I drew a blank and I always have it in my head all the time.
That's okay. You can just send
College
it to
Board,
me later.
I'm sorry. It's College Board, collegeboard.com. You can create a profile there where you can search for private scholarships. And then there is another one aside from College Board, FastWeb. Fastweb.com is another database where you could create a profile. And once you create that profile, it will automatically send to you various different private scholarships that you may qualify for and that you can apply for. So there are so many different ways and means to find money that's out there. It is out there. And like I said, always look at the college's website. On our website, again, it shows you can go click here to do your, to submit the application for institutional scholarships. And Howard Community College has a large endowment fund. We give away literally millions of dollars each year in institutional aid to students. And a lot of schools, they are like that. Some have, a lot of more funds, twice the amount of funds that Howard Community College has. But you have to go out there and you have to look and you have to ask, because sometimes we try our best in the financial aid office to disseminate this information to students, but sometimes it slips through the cracks with with some students where they, don't read the email that we send out, or they don't catch, the flyer or something that's posted around campus. So you got to do your due diligence, and you got to reach out, and you got to ask those questions.
So knock on those doors and reach out to the financial aid office, at Howard Community College if that is your school of choice. Um, the other thing that I want to really briefly just touch on is for students who are considering a 4-year school, right? Like that was me when I wanted to go to school. I was like, I need my 4-year degree. Well, I had a conversation, a very enlightening conversation with somebody who said, well, go ahead, apply for your FAFSA. On there already put your 4-year school, but also go to the community college. It's much more affordable. It was definitely closer to home, just geographically for me to go to Howard TC was much closer to home. And they said, and the other thing is one thing that I had to learn was that, your credits, if you do it right, if you actually work with both institutions together, then you're going to have a pretty easy transfer process. Things are going to transfer seamlessly. You'll be taking classes at Howard Community College that fulfill the requirements for your 4-year school over here. So it was like looking at education as a team effort to make
I
it.
wish that more.
Go
Oh,
ahead.
I was going to say, I wish that there were more people that were like that, that were honest with students. And I totally understand, wanting the college experience. I was there, I went away to a 4-year college, and I wanted the whole college experience, and I stayed on campus in the dorm and things of that nature. But I think it really is smart. It's a smart economic move when you decide to choose a community college, because your money goes a lot further at a community college than at a 4-year. So if you get full Pell Grant at a community college, you literally probably won't have to come out of pocket. Like that Pell Grant will, for the most part, cover the majority of your expenses versus you going to a 4-year institution. Yeah, that's not going to happen because you got to look at the tuition, which is going to be substantially higher. And then, there's room and board costs and all of those things associated with that 4-year institution. So I always tell people really, take the time and really think about, is this the best decision for me, economically? Compare and contrast. Take that time to actually compare the schools, the tuition amounts, how much are the fees. If you decide, yeah, I do want to go, to a 4-year institution, like you want to look at the community college and you want to compare it to that 4-year institution and do that analysis just to, to see, like, am I going to have to take out student loans? And if I have to take out student loans, what is that going to look like once I graduate? How much am I going to owe? Am I going to have to take out unsubsidized loans, which starts accruing interest the minute it hits your student account? What does that capitalized interest look like after 2 years, after 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years? What does that look like? And, really think about that and think about, hey, it looks like I'm going to have enough in free money to go to that community college where I won't have to take out student loans for 2 years, but I may have to take them out once I transfer to a 4-year. Look at the articulation agreements. I think what you talked about was how we partner with the 4-year institutions. So what you were referring to were articulation agreements with regards to certain programs, which essentially, if you break it down in simplistic terms, it means that if you go to a community college and you earn your associate's degree and then transfer into a specific 4-year institution, you will automatically transfer into your major and you will finish out in 2 years completing your coursework in your major. Look at those articulation agreements. There are so many different things that you can do as a student that will minimize you having to take on the burden of student loan debt. And make no mistake, it is a burden. It is a burden to millions of people, given the fact that student loan debt in the United States is now over $1 trillion. there's so much talk in the news because of it, because what it does is it stifles when you have an exorbitant amount of student loan debt, it stifles you from being able to do various different things that what normally people do when they graduate from college, which is, maybe they want to start a family, maybe they want to buy a home, things of that nature. You can't do any of that because you're stifled with student loan debt. So I always say sometimes people can't see the forest for the trees. Like, you want to look at the big picture and you want to look at future, not just the here and now. How is this going to impact me 5, 6, 7 years out? And once you actually think through that, then make the decision. Make the decision on what you want to do. But like you said, it is a good quality education and a good value added community college, and it's a smart economic decision for students to make, in my opinion.
Tamika, let's just remind everybody how to get in touch with the financial aid office as we continue to be home and the buildings continue to be closed.
Yeah, so you can reach Financial Aid Services through our virtual Zoom walk-in link. You can find that link on our webpage. If you navigate over to the Financial Aid Services webpage, it is right smack dab in the middle of that page. All you need to do is click on that link Monday through Friday from 9 to 3, and you will get a live counselor who will assist you with any questions that you may have. You can also reach us by emailing us at finaid@howardcc.edu.
Tamika, in a personal level, I thank you because you just gave me wings to go and actually explore the idea of furthering my personal education with a master's
Awesome.
degree that has been in my mind for a couple years now. So I really, really appreciate it. I hope everybody found some value as well. Is there anything else that you would like to say before we wrap our conversation up today?
I just want to say, we're here to assist and we're here to help you guys. And this is not just for our current students, for our separated students as well. Once you separate, we're still here. If you have questions with regards to federal aid, and more so if you have questions with regards to the loans that you took out, we're here to help. And you can reach out to us, anytime via our email, and we will assist you in any way that we possibly can.